Hi, everyone. Jane Applegath here, founder of the Epic Vision Zone, where we say it's your life, your story, make it epic. Each show, we offer you an inspiring person or message to bring you closer to your big dreams so that you can live your epic life now. Thank you for being here. You can listen to the audio version on your favorite app or watch it on YouTube, and be sure to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. Richard Baker wrote, "To get rich, never risk your health, for it is the truth that health is the wealth of wealth." Dr. V is a distinguished academic integrative health expert, author, speaker, retreat facilitator, and much more. Renowned for her groundbreaking work in nutritional sciences and holistic health, she has over 20 years of extensive research, teaching, and clinical experience, establishing her as an innovator in her field. As a holistic health clinician and neuro-training kinesiologist, Dr. V's unique perspective blends scientific principles and practices from the West with traditional healing modalities from the East. It's a comprehensive approach that focuses on addressing the root causes of health issues, empowering individuals to achieve optimal well-being mentally, emotionally, and physically. Her groundbreaking book, Dr. V's Kitchen: Eating for Ultimate Health Made Easy, integrates 5 healing nutritional protocols into delicious recipes that promote health and enjoyment. It's a must-have complement to her root cause approach to health and healing. Dr. V's passion is guiding individuals on their journey to better health and vitality using an integrated approach and nutritional sciences from diverse cultures and continents. Welcome, Dr. V. It is so exciting to have you here today.
Thank you, Jane. I'm honored to be having a beautiful, inspiring conversation with you today and your audience.
Well, likewise, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. We do not have our wealth unless we have our health, which comes first and foremost. So I can't wait to delve into this topic. So give us an idea, what inspired you to do the work that you do today?
So it started off being a nutritional science student and then moving into academics. It was until I was having my first child. He's now almost 13 years old, and I went back to academia. I just took a year off maternity leave, and then I fell pregnant unexpectedly, quicker than we thought, but we welcomed our second son. And I was facing quite a few challenges going back, that I wanted to go part-time, but that wasn't welcomed. So I thought, well, being a mom of 2, I don't want to be an academic that works 40 hours a week and is the busiest when the kids have the school holidays. So I either had the choice to quit my job or to go stay full time. So I said to myself, well, what is the reason then that I'm still in academia? What drives me there? What keeps me there? And when I made a pro and con list, the pro list didn't actually look that inspiring anymore to me. It was becoming a quite toxic environment. And I thought, well, at that point, I actually quit my job. And I thought I can't ever always go back part-time, right, as a casual if I wanted to. So it was actually then my journey with my second son, who is now almost 11, that he did not sleep much in the first year of his life. And although exhaustion is a very common experience for parents of young children, Lucas was in constant distress, meaning he was waking up in the middle of the night having panic attacks. It was very hard for myself to calm him down. seeking help from multiple doctors and healthcare practitioners who told us that we have nothing to worry, is a completely healthy child, I was still quite unsettled, because I thought it is not normal for a child to have those panic attacks, and particularly not for a mother to not be able to calm down and make your own child feel secure. So meanwhile, the relentless sleep deprivation took a real toll, because it lasted for 1 year. I became very deficient in critical nutrients like magnesium, zinc, and iron, which I discovered through a hair mineral analysis, and my gut health was compromised. I was very anxious. I was really affected with my emotional self-regulation, crying about every little thing. So in hindsight, undiagnosed, I actually had postnatal depression. And it was after 1 year that I actually sought the help of a neurotraining kinesiologist, who was able to identify the root cause of Lucas's distress, which was actually the death of a twin in utero, which happened in the first trimester. It wasn't a big deal for me, but for the child that experiences that vanishing twin, there is no heartbeat anymore, and then also the distress of having a mother that cannot always meet the emotional needs and provide the safe attachment in the first year of life. For Lucas, it basically he wasn't able to get out of that fight flight state, and that kinesiologist really enabled him through various techniques to discharge that fight flight state, recalibrated his right and left brain hemisphere, his autonomic nervous system, therefore the vagus nerve that's connecting the gut and brain, and enabled him to recuperate. And after 3 sessions, I had my son back. He was calm, emotionally more regulated. He became more resilient in terms of his whole physiological health and digestive system. And the most important, he could sleep through the night. So that really intrigued me, and I thought, I'm going to study this modality. So a lot of people may have not heard about neurotraining kinesiology. So that modality really uses neurological response testing. So it's a biofeedback loop between the muscles and the subconscious mind. We all use that biofeedback loop actually on a daily basis to move, to lock and unlock muscles. But it comes from chiropractic work. Neurological response testing, that we can access that feedback loop between muscles and the subconscious mind, and really use the responses and assess them against references and physiological markers to identify, and then, of course, with corrections, resolve mental, emotional, and physical imbalances and the root causes of those symptoms. And after studying it, I really integrated it with my background of nutritional sciences. So the root cause approach that you mentioned in the introduction, where I really look at what are basically the physiological and mental and emotional imbalances through testing first. So whether that's blood, tissue, urine, stool testing, to really get a really good picture of what are the imbalances in the person. And then I go a little bit deeper with neurological response testing through the kinesiology to really identify particularly the emotional and mental imbalances that we have in the autonomic nervous system, in the right left brain hemispheres, that very often stem from very early on, that we can dive deeper into throughout the interview. But it's really through the integration of the nutritional sciences, the neurotraining kinesiology, also my background in Chinese medicine that came through the training, and Ayurvedic medicine that I studied with a doctor from India when we lived in New Zealand before we moved to Australia. So I really have that holistic approach of these modalities to look at the whole person, meaning mental, emotional, physical factors contributing to the symptoms a person is experiencing. And we really want to dive into the whole to recuperate.
Absolutely beautiful. That was an amazing story. And you must have felt as a mom that after 3 sessions with this individual, the neuro kinesiologist, that it was like a miracle. I mean,
Correct.
as a
Yeah.
mother, as a parent, we do anything for our children, but what an incredible door opening it has been. I mean, with the combination of your background and then stepping into these other modalities, it's just amazing. The gift.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
almost as
Yeah.
though your child being born without the twin was the gift that the universe gave you in order to come to where you are today, because you are
I totally agree. Yeah.
groundbreaking. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely
Thanks, Jane. Yeah.
groundbreaking.
Yeah.
Very,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, that is such an incredible story. And you, I love the way you approached it, by the way, Dr. Verena, Dr. V. Verena. You
Yeah.
were very methodical in your transition from the
Yeah.
professional to the entrepreneurial, because you wrote down a list of pros and cons, which I love. That helps us weigh the consequences worth, whether or not it is something that we want to continue to explore. But certainly, I think it's made all the difference in your world and certainly with your family. So congratulations to just stepping into who you're meant to be. Absolutely. I love that.
Thanks, Jane.
So
Yeah.
you're very welcome. So why let's get into the gut, because I know this has been on the news a lot, and it's been a topic of many individuals who have health issues. Why do you say that the gut is considered the epicenter of human health? Give us some insight.
Well, the gut microbiome is the most dynamic ecosystem in the body, consisting of trillions of microbes living along the digestive tract. And we are more bacteria than human cells.
Mm.
So this is a very awe-inspiring system of microorganisms called the microbiota, that incorporates bacteria, fungi, viruses, protozoa, archaea, and eukaryotes, but they are always there. And it's not necessarily about eradicating, it's all about the balance and the homeostasis for or to achieve optimal health. So the central role of the gut is really to digest and absorb the nutrients from the food we eat, and they are then used by our cellular system to repair, to build cells and tissues, and to produce actually the energy that we need to power all metabolic processes in the body. So the gut is really essential for survival. It facilitates metabolism, digestion, immune defense, and even brain function. We have some 2 to 3 kilos of our body weight that is actually made up of those microbes that constantly crosstalk with the cells and our systems in the body, and can have a tremendously positive or a negative impact on our health. And it's actually interesting when you look for a definition on what is gut health, you will not find a universally agreed upon definition. The current medical literature defines gut health as the absence of gastrointestinal symptoms or diseases. However, when we are honest, gut health can still be compromised even without noticeable symptoms. And I would know that as a clinician, for example, if I would conduct a stool test on somebody and I get the results back, and they may not have symptoms, gut symptoms as such, but they actually may have other symptoms that are connected to the gut, because the first symptoms from an unbalanced gut that is in dysbiosis, meaning imbalance, is actually very often the brain fog, the fatigue, not necessarily gut symptoms as such. So a well-functioning gut means really better quality of life, improved physical, mental, emotional health, a stronger protection against acute and chronic illnesses. And the foundation on which gut health is built is really the diversity and stability of our gut microbiome. So signs of poor gut health manifest frequently as heartburn, excessive flatulence, burping, for example, as well as a rumbling stomach or recurrent nausea or diarrhea, abdominal pain, bloating. So this is what we very often have heard of is called the irritable bowel syndrome. But symptoms, what we have very often arising to are also small bacterial overgrowth, a condition caused by an imbalance of the quality and quantity of the gut microbiota in the small intestine. And we have also evidence that is growing that poor gut health is linked to a series of chronic and mental as well as physical diseases such as depression, anxiety, Alzheimer, cardiovascular disease, and even cancer. So, and because this diagnosis now affects an unprecedented number of people around the globe, something really has to change. And this is why, as we are diving more and more into getting to know the gut, because we actually don't know that much for research. We're discovering more day to day. It is just a fascinating space to watch.
I can imagine. I love the science, and it when you're taking the gut, but our human body is amazing. I mean, the things that happen on a second by second basis within inside of us. If only we realized what it was, we would appreciate and take care of those mechanisms, however you want to call it, those programs, much more, because we are walking miracles. I mean, you were just describing a little bit about the gut and how it does this and how it does that. And, and then we have the blood flow in the cells in our brain. And yes, and I agree with you. The gut is something that has not been explored as much as it has been in the in these current years, because I think it goes into big pharma, but that's a whole nother story. I mean, it's better for big pharma to keep us a little ignorant of how we can really take care of ourselves, because then we wouldn't need so much of their medicine. If you know what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
But that's
I totally agree with you.
yeah, that's a whole nother discussion. But thank you for that
That's a whole
insight.
different podcast, yeah.
Oh, exactly, exactly. So the impact of our overall well-being then really comes down to the health of our gut. Is that sort of what I heard you say? Because you got into the depression and the anxiety, which is a lot of times associated with mental health, and then the emotional as well. And then of course you mentioned the body, the cardiovascular and the aches and pains of usually an older age, but not always. So the gut is really for our overall well-being.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So we touched a little bit on the gut microbiota, so the different bacteria being more bacteria than human cells. What we put in our body, with the environment we create for our body physically, mentally, emotionally, really has a huge impact on those bacteria, because everything is in constant communication with them. But the second most important part that we haven't touched upon yet is really that a flourishing gut microbiome, and hence gut health and overall health, is really also dependent on the gut barrier. People probably have heard that buzzword leaky gut a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So that really refers to the physical intestinal barrier that is comprised of the lining of epithelial cells. So just imagine a tight junction of cells. I always explain it to my clients like a fisher net that is really tight. And when it gets loose, we get those holes in a very, very kind of tight netting. When the holes become too large those cells and that are connected by tight junctions and the reinforcement by the mucous layer, when that is affected, what can happen is that the ingested food, antigens, toxins, and ingested microbes can actually sieve out into the blood and can cause systemic low-grade inflammation, which is the root cause of a lot of illnesses. And what contributes to the breakdown of that gut barrier is that chronic disruption that a person can't then very often recover from anymore is really our lifestyle and what we are bombarded with. So that is chronic stress, the foods we eat, but also the persistent exposure to chemicals, antibiotics, and herbicides such as glyphosate in food can seriously damage that gut barrier, and then can contribute to the development of autoimmune or metabolic or mental health disorders that we really want to get hold of. So the microbial ecosystem is really highly dependent on our daily lifestyle choices. We have one temple, which is that body, and we really ideally want to take care of it on all levels as much as we can.
Right. Yes, absolutely. And I could see, in our environment today, it's changing so much. The food that we eat, the processed food that we eat, the environments where, depending on where you live, the pollution, and then of course there are some individuals that are shifting now to their own chickens, their own little farms. I personally and my husband, we go to the farmer's market to get fresh produce that is grown locally, because the difference in not only in the quality but the flavor of the vegetables is night and day. Like, if people only knew
Yeah,
the difference
yeah,
between what they're buying in the supermarket, and we go to a very organic supermarket. So
yeah.
our meat, we buy organic as much as we can, and chicken and what all that. But I think people are catching on, and I'm hoping that we get this rolling in a big scale, because we really need to for our next generation. Correct. I mean, they're the ones that are
Yeah, I
getting
totally agree.
exposed more. Like, when I grew up, we didn't have as much fast food and as much packaged things. And I mean, when I was younger, we had the TV. I remember the TV dinner came out, and we were all so excited to have this thing that you could put in and then have instant dinner. I mean, that was the extent of like frozen food. It makes me
Yeah,
sound like a dinosaur, but you know what I mean? But nowadays it's like
I
second
know.
nature. People don't cook. It's like, their idea of
Yeah,
cooking a meal is, it's like throwing some pasta with some jar bought spaghetti sauce, and that's your dinner. And I'm like, okay, where's your
yes,
nutrition? Where your pasta's like, the wheat that we use here is not good. And who knows how long that stuff has been in the jar, and what preservatives are in it. And so it's like, yes, I understand. So I thank you for that information. But yeah, we've really got to get on board here because our health is
yeah, I
everything.
totally agree. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, now, in what way does the gut then affect brain function? Because this is optimizing your gut health, improves cognitive abilities and mental well being as well, which a lot of people don't know.
Yes, the gut definitely affects brain function. We have been taught that the brain and the gut are separate organs with unrelated
Mhm.
functions, but nothing actually could be further from the truth. The gut and the brain communicate using this bidirectional system called the gut-brain axis. And an unhealthy gut has a direct negative impact on the brain, and vice versa. A healthy gut can optimize brain health and cognitive function. So that gut-brain axis is a very complex communication system comprising actually of the autonomic nervous system, the vagus nerve, the HPA axis, which is that hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, and the immune system. So collectively, that gut-brain axis monitors and responds to to changes in the gut, relying on neurons supplying the tissues of the gut, as well as neurotransmitters they release. And that vagus nerve, which is that cranial nerve number 10, which is the longest nerve in the body and the most complex one, which runs from the brainstem to the abdomen, and it links the central nervous system to all major organs. So you can imagine that cranial nerve number 10, that vagus nerve, branches into every organ and gland except for the reproductive organs, and hence that already by itself tells us how much our physical health is affected by the brain and gut and vice versa. So that vagus nerve really helps us to regulate gut function and is critical to overall health. Dysfunction of that vagus nerve can be caused by physiological or psychological stressors, and we can just purely get nausea, bloating, diarrhea, slow stomach emptying, actually chronic inflammatory disorders like irritable bowel syndrome, rheumatoid arthritis, even being like having weight challenges, and pain disorders can all be related to dysfunction in that vagus nerve. So the gut-brain axis is really, as I said before, the reason why the brain impacts the gut and why gut ecology affects the brain. So stress gives us a perfect example of that relationship in action. Under stress, the brain produces a hypothalamic corticotropin releasing factor, so just a substance that alters actually the gut motility, meaning how at what speed the food moves through the digestive system. It alters acid, stomach acid, enzyme secretion, actually the hunger and satiety signals, the permeability of the gut lining, and the microbial ecosystem and inflammatory states. So you see already how much stress can affect, which is incredible because we can eat the perfect diet, we can exercise, but if we, for example, don't facilitate emotional regulation, learn and support stress regulation, then we can still get a lot of gut symptoms and challenges with our digestive systems, because the human brain neurons are always listening to the microbes in the gut as well. We have over 50% of dopamine and 90% of the serotonin. That is the feel-good hormone, but what a lot of people don't know, it's also responsible of how quickly your food moves through the digestive system. That is actually made by the endocrine cells in the gut lining. So we are really a receiver of nature through our senses, we can say, because so much of the dopamine and serotonin is made in the gut lining. So it's a very intricate sense organ, that gut lining. We can often refer to it as actually as the sixth sense. So stress throws that vital function of the gut completely out of balance. And this is why it's really important that we, as I said before, manage our stress. We consciously eat, chew thoroughly, because that actually straight away puts us into that rest and digest state that we activate. Healthy relationships with self and others is important. Of course, and underlying supporting all of that with a whole food diet of real living whole foods, like you mentioned, farmers markets versus supermarket foods. And also self-development. Self-development is really important to really look at the whole and support that gut-brain connection.
What is biodiversity and why is it crucial for gut health?
So biodiversity can really be defined as a variety of life in our natural world. So it's all about the number of different species, whether that's plants, animals, fungi, algae, or microorganisms in our gut, coming back to the bacteria, the microbiota. So the biodiversity is a key indicator for the health of our ecosystem, such as the gut microbiome being an ecosystem that is part of the larger ecosystem we live in. So we always, when we look at the body health, we always want to look at the microcosm, us, including the gut microbiome within us, being part of the larger macrocosm, because everything is interconnected, whether that's me within the environment I live or the different organ functions in the body. So the higher the diversity is, for example, in the gut microbiota, the healthier it is. And then if you want to, we can also dive into what is actually important in restoring that biodiversity, because this is what really your question was. So it is so crucial to, biodiversity is so crucial for our gut health and overall health, because when we have when we don't have diversity, what we have happening right now with, the monotony of the food that you were providing an example of before, with the spaghetti and tomato sauce that kids eat like 4 or 5 times a week. That is not diversity. Diversity is eating 40 different foods a week, ideally, and that is then a sign of health. So individuals can actually really play a crucial role in restoring that biodiversity within themselves by what is important, like we need to start supporting agricultural practices again. We need to prioritize that soil health and diversity, because this is where our food comes from, right? So we have to first restore biodiversity in the soil, that we then have a higher quality food product, because when we have better soil, we will have far more microbes and more nutrient rich food. And this is why broccoli that you buy at the farmers markets is gonna have a very different taste to even the organic broccoli you may buy in the supermarket, and a strawberry may taste like a real strawberry. So it's really, we have to start advocating for sustainable farming methods again. We have to, we do that also by actually going to the farmers markets and purchasing products from the farmer, knowing the farmer and where the produce comes from, starting to grow more on our own again, like having little vegetable patches. Even if you start just with growing some herbs on your balcony, that's fantastic. A lot of more children, I see it with mine, are getting into fishing and hunting because they are actually interested in that earth to table concept. They want to know, they want to learn those survival skills again. And very often you see in children, they may not be eating fish, but when they catch it themselves, they actually gonna eat it. So it really has a very profound impact on them. So butchers, know where your meat is coming from, what that livestock is actually fed. That is very important. Same with your grains. Are they exposed to glyphosate or not? Do the animals we consume the meat of, are they fed antibiotics or not? All of those has huge impact on our temple, being the body. So we should really be conscious and purchase organic, pesticide, chemical-free produce as much as possible, because when we go to farmers markets, it's definitely affordable, very often much more than in shops. We want to avoid glyphosate, which is which is actually labeled as an anti, or patented as an antimicrobial and antibiotic. And since the 1990s, we have an increased use of it. And the problem with glyphosate is, as it is a weed killer, it actually affects not just the bacteria on the plants, but also in our body. And it really has a huge impact in blocking an enzyme pathway that creates 8 essential amino acids in our body that shake it up pathway, and it has a huge impact on our overall health if that enzyme pathway is affected and we can't produce those 8 essential amino acids that our body actually does not produce by itself. So
Right.
it's really important. The interesting thing is too that the American Gut Project, for example, found that we actually run on 20% capacity of biodiversity compared of our indigenous ancestors. So we have 10 to 12,000 species of variety in our gut compared to 40 to 50,000 that African indigenous cultures still have. So it's actually the workforce that we lose that fuels that disease epidemic and leads to those health issues.
That is fascinating. Absolutely
Mm.
fascinating. You wonder sometime if it's by design. I'm sorry,
Yes, yes.
I have a very cynical mind, but I'm thinking, wow, that is gigantic. And unfortunately,
It's
it's
yeah,
not
yeah,
getting better. I mean, you have all these synthetic foods now that they're dreaming up. I mean, like the fake meat, and I don't know. It's like, really? It just, the thought of it just turns my stomach. So I personally, I'm not going to be a buyer of that, but that's going in the wrong direction. There's no question, especially given what you've taught us here. So just amazing. Well, this is now I am fascinated with this. You tell us that how the sinuses are a communication interface and a gatekeeper. What do you mean by that?
yes. That is an interesting concept that I also got more into it through my second son because he became a mouth breather, which a lot of
Mm,
children and adults are. And mouth breathing is really something that we want to ideally switch into nose breathing again, because when we nose breathe, there are a lot of there are a lot of anaerobic bacteria coming into our system versus mouth breathing, a lot of aerobic bacteria, meaning which are fueled and living on air, come in. And that actually creates an imbalance in dysbiosis in the gut by itself. So diving into this a little bit deeper is that moving on with it's actually a beautiful flow from biodiversity, that the gut health begins actually through the biodiversity with each breath. We breathe
mm,
10 to 20 times every minute, and every breath exposes us to that external world of bacteria, fungi, protozoa, yeast. They basically download information from the environment. And life starts with that breath, with moving the breath through the turbinates of the sinuses. And the sinuses are so important that embryologically, the first thing that forms the heart palate becomes also the foundation for the development of the sinuses and the nasal passages. And each of those turbinate structures warms the air, and the microbes exchange always with the surface of the mucosa. And the sinuses create a vortex of airflow through the nasal mucosa. And this is where really the immune system starts. The immune system takes the information from each breath and communicates that information of the environment to the rest of the body. So it's really the start, and then the end of the digestive system is the appendix, that we very often think it's kind of it doesn't have a function, but it actually has. It has the same distribution of microenvironments as we have in the sinuses. And they both, for example, which is fascinating, have the ability to store the memory of biodiversity. And when we get exposed to antibiotics, for example, they recover themselves approximately within 4 weeks. And that steady recovery follows by the species being repopulated first by the sinuses and then by the appendix after the insult. So the sinuses are really a storage system for the complexity of the ecosystem called the microbiome, which is so fascinating.
Wow. Yeah. So if somebody has sinus issues, is it, I'm personally don't, I'm fortunate. I don't have what everyone refers to as allergies, and that causes sinus issues. Is it really from allergies, or do you feel that it's connected somehow with the whole the gut, and the interpretation of your body with the air we're breathing?
It's a really, really good question. So when somebody has sinus issues that can be sinus congestion
Hmm.
or hard generally more a mouth breather, then we actually want to look into the gut, because very often the sinuses are affected by enlarged adenoids,
Hmm.
particularly in the first 20 years of life, and very often which is paired with enlarged inflamed tonsils. That the root cause of that is actually when we have food sensitivities that cause a constant inflammation of the gut. So
Hmm.
by healing the gut, very often it helps to do a blood test to identify food sensitivities, where we then avoid those foods and create an environment where the body can heal the inflammation, particularly the gut. Taking adenoids and tonsils out is not always necessarily the solution, because the problem as such may not always resolve to back to nose breathing. But particularly with the sinus congestion, I have seen in clients that healing the gut and eliminating the food triggers can be
Mm.
a tremendous help.
Right. That certainly makes a lot of sense. So, but it's interesting because many people who have sinus issues, and I know many, they never make that correlation.
Mhm.
They think it's something that they're, in the environment, or, but yes, it makes complete sense that it would, that there's that loop again, that, everything is
Yeah.
connected for sure. And that's the integrative approach then to our health. Here's a question now. Why are our personal stories and experiences crucial in the journey of gut healing? Can you give us an example of how it influenced someone's healing process?
Yes, so I can, for example, share my own story in a nutshell. Our personal stories start with actually our ancestors, then
Mhm.
our parents. It shapes really our genetics. Then, of course, the personal experiences we have already in utero through our birth experience. Post birth, and then, of course, the first 20 years of life, having ideally a safe attachment. So the ability to attach to parents and caregivers is crucial, as well as then the life experiences we have. So that all contributes to enabling us to live our authentic, positive sense of self in an ideal world, or it causes a suppression of our self, and we can go into living an identity, like meaning my identity is work, or I'm become the good girl. So experiences in our life can really cause suppressions of self, that we stay in the defense, and have incredible mental emotional consequences, because when the experiences cause a fight flight reaction, that causes the defense, the misconceptions, the suppression of your authentic self, then they affect the physical through what we said before, the right and left brain don't integrate as well. The autonomic nervous system is compromised, that we are always more in a fight, flight, sympathetic high versus rest and digest, parasympathetic. And that has a huge impact on the gut microbiome and connected systems. So I give you a little example of that. My grandfather, for example, it was grandparents generally. It was Second World War, coming from Europe, Austria. So my grandfather, being principal and high school teacher, came home one day and his whole house was bombed. His two children and wife lost. He remarried. Then my father, having my father as a child, is in his second family. But in this line, for example, he was totally traumatized by that PTSD, and therefore he was definitely very controlling in being a parent to my father. Then when you look at my mother's side, again, lots of poverty. Father was in the war. It was survival. It was full on survival. The children had to, work. They were only worth their work. There was a lot of emotional and mental abuse. So all that had an impact on my mom's ability, of course, to emotionally regulate and self-regulate, and that shapes that generation of their ability, what they can provide their children with in terms of parenting. So every parent always does their best, but of course our stories and our experiences makes us be a certain way, right? Positive or negative. And we can all work on that, but we very often start to work on ourselves with the children, because the children, now that's where I come in, are the best mirrors. So it was, being the first daughter, I was raised very strictly. Because there was a lot of fear involved. But what then added to that was that I had dyslexia as a child growing up. So when I went through school, it was extremely traumatic for me. I couldn't never feel validated. I couldn't express my worthiness. I couldn't express actually who I am, because I was quite afraid. I was fearful that I would be scrutinized again, always the fear of not knowing enough. So in a summary, I was, this teenager, and then became this adult that felt shame, that felt I wasn't worthy enough, I was not good enough, because I didn't have the environment, particularly through the schooling, to express it. And even at home, I could only, express it so much. So then it was the work that I did 20 years, once I was 20 and growing up, that I really was diving into that, and looked at the emotional, mental, physical, intergenerational trauma and my experiences that started to heal the emotional, mental side. But because I was in constant fight, flight, because fight, flight can't be maintained forever, certain parts of the body and functions can actually go into a freeze state. I was severely affected with adrenal fatigue very early on in life, because my identity became work. I could only express my worth through work. And that was something I really had to learn. I had to learn to relax. I never knew how to relax. But this go, go, go of expressing my worth was really leading to the adrenal fatigue. But also when your parasympathetic nervous system is compromised, I had always certain nutritional deficiencies, therefore had the tendency to bacterial overgrowth. And that's just through the imbalance in the autonomic nervous system because of the mental, emotional, and physical stressors. So once I was identifying the root causes more and more and healed that, it really brought me to a very centered, peaceful self, and feeling confident and worthy and safe to express my authentic self.
Mm, that is so beautiful, Dr. V, and so rich. Um, it's coming back to you of who we are, divinely, because
Mm,
we're born to be creators. We're born to be divine, but you're absolutely right. Everything influences us, and it's wonderful that, especially in the Western cultures, we are now coming to that realization that what a lot of the ancients and some of the older cultures have known for decades, centuries, that it is vital for the human to be with themselves. There's a beautiful quote that I love, and it says, "To the mind that is still, the universe surrenders,"
mm,
because it's a peace that we experience, but it's the peace of who we are, because we come in alignment with knowing this is how I'm meant to felt, not struggling to be someone I'm not for whatever reason. And I think a lot of people today, unfortunately, walk around like that. I mean, I valued my career, my in my previous life, and definitely was wrapped up in my work was my worth. And people would say, "Well,
mm.
who are you, or what do you do, or tell me about yourself." And the telling about myself was my job, but that's not who I am, right? And if you ask most
Yes.
people today, if you ask them, tell me about yourself, they'll right away go into their career or what they do. I'm a corporate executive for whatever, or I'm a mom, I'm a stay-at-home mom. But okay, that's great, but who are you? And that's a really hard question, because we
Hard
don't
question
ask
to
ourselves.
answer.
It is. It's a very hard question. Somebody would ask me, and I'm like, wow, okay, let me think about it. So anyway, wonderful. Thank you. That was beautiful insight, and the story as well, because we all relate to stories. And I completely understand what you're saying. So it is very vital that we do the work with ourselves as well, and not just the physical or the diet. It's really taking time to look after yourself, and it's not a luxury. It's a necessary. It's necessary in order for you to be the best that you can be for others. That's what it is.
Yes.
We
Yes.
have to stop looking at it as a luxury, because unfortunately, a lot of people, if you're not working, like as in, what we see in the West as work, then you're just lazy. And we're just
That's
sitting
right.
there.
That's
Being in
right.
meditation is not being lazy. It's really good
No.
work. But anyway,
Yeah.
that was a beautiful insight into the work that needs to be done, and overcoming our old stories in order to step into our new future. I mean, that's
Yeah.
I love a gentleman who says, the if our thoughts are the language of our mind and our emotions are the language of our body, then how we think and how we feel creates our state of being.
Mm.
And if
Beautiful.
you Thank you. And if you think and feel that you're not worthy, or you're not good enough, or you haven't done enough, then your state of being, or in your case, your well being, is not going to be there. You've
That's
taken
right.
away the well-being. But well, thank you. And what are some key strategies then that we can share with the audience, or techniques for healing and maintaining a healthy gut? Give our audience some easy fix, not necessarily fixes, but some strategies that they can walk away with.
Sure. So the number one, I just want to summarize again from what we talked about so far, is quality produce, right? That's definitely
Mhm.
number one. It's not so much what we eat, but also where does the produce come from? Because when we choose quality produce, then we already limit farm or packaged food, of course. So We want to have high quality fats, avoid inflammatory foods such as the hydrogenated oils like canola, safflower, sunflower, and so forth. Really want to choose stable oils like extra virgin olive oil and ghee and coconut oil and so forth. We want to really avoid refined grains, particularly sprayed with glyphosate, high quality meats, eggs, dairy, and high quality vegetables. We also want to really decrease antimicrobial exposure because this has a huge effect on the gut bacteria. So alcohol actually is an antimicrobial. It dehydrates our brain, as well as glyphosate is an antimicrobial, and then mouthwash would also be an antimicrobial, and antibiotics that are antimicrobials used in a lot of livestock feed, cleaning products, personal care products. We really want to kind of choose wisely. With alcohol, we want to really, again, be mindful how much, because it impacts your stress response, depletes B vitamins, magnesium, affects the sleep, causes always inflammation, imbalances electrolytes, reduces digestive enzymes, decreases absorption of nutrients, and disrupts the balance of the healthy gut bacteria and increases that stress on the gut lining. We also want to aim coming back to 40 different foods per week. So if you want to start with that, that's great, right? You can, for example, every different food is a point, believe it or not, but some people hit that target in a day where they have 40 different foods. And, when you dive into my cookbook, you will see that. Chew each bite really well, like chew your food. We can't, we cannot choose, we can only choose so much. So what food we put in and chewing the rest, our body autonomically does for us. So chew until it's really lubricated. Add more fermented foods to increase that biodiversity. So a tablespoon of like sauerkraut or kimchi before maybe your lunch or dinner on a daily basis is great. Just be aware that fermented food is high in histamines. So start maybe, with a little amount, like half a teaspoon or a teaspoon, and just see how you feel. If you get any reaction, then you may, have to back off and start even smaller. Then also what is important is really ensure your fundamentals are right. So fundamentals means, do you sleep 8 to 9 hours? Do you get morning AM sunlight exposure? Because that's really important for regulating your circadian rhythm and your satiety regulation. And that is very important for gut health as well as daily exercise.
Wonderful. Well, I'll get on that right away. People are like, okay, but anyway, I know it takes work. Yeah, but the results.
Sounds
Yeah,
easy. Yeah.
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 When you
But
say
most
40
people don't
different,
even. Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah. Well, a lot of us, it sounds simple, but a lot of us don't have the foundation set right. I'm
Right.
even still, working always on it. It's like, okay, get your 8 hours, don't stay up too late. It's a constant reminder. So it's not about getting it perfect either. It's just, really reminding ourselves, let's work on the foundation, and it makes a big difference.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Be mindful and be aware. If you're aware, I mean, okay, yeah, everyone has things that they need to do, take care of if they stay up too late, but then don't make it a habit. So, yes, absolutely. So now I'm really excited to tell our audience about your new groundbreaking cookbook and the different nutritional protocols that it covers and where they can find it. So maybe just give us an idea of your book and where they can find it and why it is so groundbreaking.
Sure. So, Dr. Verena's Kitchen Eating for Ultimate Health Made Easy is the title, and it is the first cookbook to integrate the 5 nutritional protocols. So, we have the foundation being gluten free, sugar free, and dairy free. for every recipe. So that is the first healing level that people can try out for, say, 6 weeks, and just notice any changes in their mental, emotional, physical health. If they want to go a bit further, they can try the low FODMAP protocol as well, which is a set of carbohydrates that can particularly cause a lot of the irritable bowel syndrome symptoms. And there is then also the option for people to try paleo or the low histamine version for people who have a lot of quite inflammatory conditions. But those 5 nutritional protocols have never been combined in a book before. And you have over 100 fast and fail-proof recipes to support those nutritional protocols. Really no complex instructions or hours of meal preparation. It's really straightforward. The cookbook has been out now for almost 2 months, and the feedback and reviews are amazing. Like a mom I had in the States, a mom of 2 has already cooked half of the cookbook, and she loves it. Her kids are enjoying it, and her husband emailed me, and said, "My God, Verena, I can't, believe it. She can't wait for cookbook number 2." It's great, to hear those feedbacks, because it's one is writing a cookbook, but the second is really like, how is it implemented? How do people love it? Is it approachable? That's the second stage, of course, and that proves to be the case, which is great, considering those recipes are not from a recipe developer. They're really a reflection of what we eat, what is in my kitchen, from whole food pantry staples as a foundation, meaning your own granola, your own ghee, your own broths, your own ferments, your own dressings, to healing elixirs, breakfast, hearty soups, light meals, very satisfying main meals, colorful salads, and of course decadent treats. So it's really a very comprehensive cookbook with very fast and easy whole food recipes that you can just use as is, for just every day. But you can also use it if you want to do some personal healing on yourself and improve your health outcomes. There are menu planning ideas in the cookbooks, ingredient insights. So every recipe has the medicinal properties of the ingredients used covered. And it's a great guide if people don't know where to start. They want to feel better, but they don't know where to start. This is a great guide for them.
Thank you. I was
And
talking. Yeah, go ahead.
sorry, I forgot to say where it's available on Amazon globally. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I can't wait to pick it up. And I think I'm going to have to get one for my sisters as well. One is a
Yeah.
professional chef, and she actually is a nutritionalist, but this has everything. And I did read some of the reviews, by the way, and everyone says they're delicious. They're easy
Great.
and they're nutritious. So, I mean, and I love that you said it has some elixirs in there. So it's got a little bit of everything. I'm sure
Yes.
it's going to be a bestseller. It sounds wonderful. So everyone, if you want to start on your health and your well-being, get the book. Let's start there at least. So, where can everyone connect with you, Dr. Verena? You've just mentioned your book is available on Amazon. Give our audience an idea of where they can connect with you. And a question for you as well: do you have patients or do you deal with patients or clients in the United States or Canada? Because I know you are
I
coming
do.
to us from Australia.
Yes. So I do see clients globally. We just connect online. So the online space today is a great opportunity to work with people all around the globe, which I offer that service. People can connect with me via my website, drverena.com, all written out, DUCTOR Verena, or via Instagram, which is also the handle Dr. Verena. And I'm actually also going to dive soon into creating a YouTube channel where I'm going to share more of my knowledge. Yeah.
Wonderful. Oh my gosh, that's absolutely perfect. Just what we need. And I'm so excited to have that. Definitely. Well, thank you so much. And as always, you'll be able to get all of Dr. Verena's information and contact on our Epic Vision Zone bio pages. And because we're here on the Epic Vision Zone, Dr. Verena, I have one last question for you. If your life were an epic story, what would the title be?
I think it would be From Shame to Fame.
Mm.
Because as I shared with my personal story, and you have to really think, what is fame? It's not being a movie star for me. Fame can come in so many shapes and forms. So fame is really when you are known or talked about by many people but for me it's that authentic self again. So it's coming from the shame of an anxious girl, self-doubting, fearful, feeling unworthy in her ability to express that positive sense of self into the peaceful, centered, validated, authentic self that I am today, and that I can share with my community and tribe by the work I do.
Mm. Wonderful. I love that title. I would pick that up. The title would grab me.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. And again, thank you so much for joining us here today. And once again, just as a reminder, you can get all of the information and contact data from our Epic Vision Zone bio pages. And be sure to contact me on Instagram at Jane Applegath, and check out my website at janeapplegath.com, where you can access your creative power and vision play sheets for free. Sending you much love. This is the Epic Vision Zone, transforming your dreams into epic success.